That's a nice surprise, but as we know, fishing with maggots can catch you anything. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I think there's a method that we don't really fish here in England. I think we are missing opportunities on certain days, especially on commercial waters. I'm going to be fishing today with maggots. However, I'm going to be using sticky mag. So I'm going to be showing you how we can actually prepare the sticky mag, and it's going to be interesting to see what reaction we get by fishing sticky mag through a cage feeder. And I'm going to be casting up to this island behind me. There are carp, F1s, lots and lots of silverfish in this lake. So it's going to be an interesting response whatever happens, and hopefully it's going to give you a great insight into what can be a brilliant method. The sun has finally broken through the clouds. I'm already at the peg, as you can see. I'm at Lindholme Lakes today. There are lots of different lakes here. And for this tactic, because it's August, I'm going to fish one of the lakes that is shallower. I'm going to be casting over to that island behind me where it's only about 3-4 feet deep. I'm going to get a bomb out there just to make sure it's not too snaggy. And once I've done that, once I'm happy with where I'm going to fish, I'll talk you through how I'm going to use all these bits behind me to prepare my bait. It's going to be really interesting. There are lots and lots of F1s in here. I had my personal best F1 here last winter, which went on the scales at exactly 10 pounds, believe it or not. But there are lots and lots of carp in here. So it's going to be interesting to see how the fish are going to respond to these maggots. So because I'm going to be fishing in one spot to start with, I want to make sure that it's actually clear. As you can see out there, you know, there is a tree that's submerged there to the left. I'm not actually going to be fishing to that. I'm going to try and fish towards the actual island itself, because you've got brambles and things there that are overhanging, and hopefully it's going to be clean. Now, I've already had a cast out there. This is a 17.5 gram bottle bomb, and I'd like to fish somewhere there, but obviously that depends if it's actually fishable. So with that bomb, I can actually cast it out there. It gives me an idea how soft that bottom is as well. So if it sticks in, you know, when I go to move the bomb, then that's telling you that it's really soft. It, you know, it could be really silty. That's what happens on these lakes. And obviously by dragging the bomb across the bottom, it's going to give me an idea of, are there any branches down there, any twigs, any roots or anything like that? Because if there are, I want to find that out now whilst I've just got a bomb on there. I don't want to find out once I've got a full rig on there and a feeder. But that seems to be okay. I'm going to have to watch it if I do hook any fish there, because if they do kite to the left, then they are going to head for that tree. But that's going to be reflected in the hook length and everything that I use, where hopefully I'm going to be able to control any fish if I do hook any. But that seems to be okay. Just going to drag it this way as well to make sure everything's all right there. That seems nice and clean to me. So that's the spot I'm going to fish. So the maggots have come round. They were bagged up from the tackle shop. But to fish with sticky mag, you do need maggots that are actually riddling. We are fishing with live maggots, so they're riddling nicely now. So I'm going to prepare my bait and just quickly show you how I'm going to be introducing it into the swim. Now, one of the things that puts a lot of people off fishing with sticky mag is that lots of people think that you've got to be super clinical with everything. Everything's got to be mega clean. And don't get me wrong, when you've got maggots like this, if you are going to clean them up, it is better if they are super clean. You know, it just makes the sticky mag, whichever style you're using, stick to the maggots much easier. It is much cleaner and everything. But in this video, I just kind of want to prove to you that it doesn't have to be like that, because you're going to see how I'm going to do it today. Now, I haven't clinically cleaned everything here. As you can see, I've got a sieve here. I have given it a quick wash. I've rubbed it with a towel, but there are still bits of ground bait in there. You know, it's not super clean or anything like that, but it's still going to allow me to fish with sticky mag. So I want to make this as easy as possible for everyone who wants to go out and try this. So the first thing you need to do is, I've got 3 pints of live maggots there. Fresh maggots are always better. They're obviously riddling, so they have been bagged up, but as soon as I got to my peg, I put them in a big bowl. The air's got to them and they're all riddling fine now, as you can see. But the first thing we need to do is just clean them off. So all I'm going to do is simply pop them on a sieve like that, and just sieve off all that maize, or, you know, if they've got sawdust on them, depending on, you know, where you've got your maggots from. Just get all that off, and then I'm going to pop that into a nice big wide bowl. So I'm going to do the whole 3 pints, which should be plenty, but we have got extra, so we can obviously step up and feed more if the fish want more. So there we go. I'm going to get all that maize off. There we go. So as you can see, they are much cleaner now, but they're not clinical, you know, they're not mega clean. If you do want to get them really clean, obviously you can keep repeating this process. You can even get a damp towel, like a damp hand towel, and rub that over the maggots. That'll take some of that maize off there that is already on the maggots. But I'm happy with that. That's going to work for today. So there we go. That's all we need. We've got a nice big wide bowl. The other two items that we need in order to do this is an atomizer and obviously your sticky mag. Whatever brand that you use, this is actually Arabic gum, which lots of people widely regard as the best one out there. That's the one that I'm going to use. It does come in bags, but I've just transferred it into a tub just so it's nice and easy to transport and use. And then I've got an atomizer, which is going to allow me to add water to the maggots really nice and evenly and slowly. Because if you're going to go out and try this, my best bit of advice as regards using sticky mag is take your time. When we start adding the sticky mag to the maggots, don't rush the process. It does take time. So if you're unsure about it, when you get to your peg, you can start that process there just to give the maggots plenty of time to start sticking up, so you can get them to the right sort of stickiness for when you start your session. So all I'm going to do now is simply get the Arabic gum. Like I said, I've transferred this into a nice sprinkle pot. It doesn't matter what you use. And I'm going to just sprinkle, as you can see, the Arabic gum evenly over the maggots. Okay? And with it, this is obviously much easier with a large bowl or a wide bowl like I've got here. Okay? There we go. And all I'm going to do then is get the atomizer on its finest spray and just lightly spray the maggots. And this is the process where you just don't rush it. You know, take your time if you're new to it. As you can see, that's wetting those maggots up nice and evenly. No need to touch them. And because these maggots are riddling, what they're going to do is they've already got the gum on them. You're wetting the gum, so it's going to start to get sticky. But because the maggots are riddling, they're obviously transferring it to each other. You know, as you can see there. You know, so they are actually distributing that gum around the whole bowl of maggots. So there we go, just keep adding a little bit, and by simply adding the gum little and often, you can get it to the consistency you want. So if you want it really, really sticky, so if you're fishing in deep water, or if you even want to throw balls of maggots in, you can just add more of the gum. On the flip side of that, if you don't want it too sticky, if you're fishing somewhere like today where it's shallow water, we're putting it in a feeder, it's only shallow anyway, so it doesn't need to be mega sticky. It just needs to be sticky enough to stay in the feeder to get the maggots out there. And what will happen is, over the course of the next 10 or 15 minutes, these maggots are slowly going to get stickier and stickier, and then they'll start to stick together. And by doing it like this with plenty of time before the start of your session, you're going to be able to add the gum as you required, so that it's going to be just right for the start of your session. Well, it's only been 10 minutes, and as you can see now, these maggots, look, they're starting to stick together. Now this is the stage where you've got to be careful, because it will be easy to try and get, with no pun intended, a quick fix to get these bang right now. However, there's enough sticky mag on there now that over the course of the next 10 minutes they will more than likely start to stick up even more. So if I was to add more to it now, whilst it might look better now, in 10 or 15 minutes you'll probably find that you've got too much on there. But as you can see there, that's sticking now. That would easily go into a cage feeder. Like I say, it's only 3 or 4 feet deep where I'm fishing, and that would be enough to stay in the feeder. The key to remember is you want the maggots to stick to each other, not to your hands. That's usually a sign. If you know, if this is sticking to your hands, as you can see, look, there's no sticky mag there sticking to me, but the maggots are sticking together. That's when you know you've got it about right. You know, if it was the other way around, if the maggots were sticking all over my fingers, that would suggest that, you know, there's perhaps too much water, or there's too much sticky mag on there. But as you can see, look at that. You could even introduce those as balls if you wish. So if you were feeding a margin, you could squeeze them into balls and then catapult them, or you could just throw them by hand. But they, as you can see, are just about right to go into a feeder for when you're fishing in shallow water. Well, we're just about ready to go. One thing to remember is that you spent all that time, all that care trying to get your maggots just right. If you're on a day like today, keep them covered up. You know, the sun, the wind, all that will affect, you know, the stickiness of the maggots, you know. And so whilst they might be right now, if you leave them open to the elements, you know, it will change. So try and keep them covered up. I've got a tub there, and all my spare maggots, the extra maggots, I've got a couple of handfuls in there that I'm going to be using in that tub just there, and all the rest are down here out of the sun. They're in the shade, so hopefully they're going to stay in good condition. One thing to remember, and this is one thing that a lot of people get a bit despondent about, is that you can always adjust the mix or your sticky mag whilst you're fishing. You know, if it does dry out a little bit, you can add a little bit more sticky mag to it. You've got your atomizer, add a bit more water to it, and some days you might find that you are, you know, tickling it up, as we say, whilst you're actually fishing, because it is actually changing, you know, whilst you're actually on the bank. So just take your time with it, don't rush it. So the kit I've got, basically I've got the Ultra Pro 11 foot, the Horizon. This is 11 foot commercial feeder. That's a 3000 HX Pro reel, 8 pound Horizon line, and that is just to a nice simple free running rig. If I quickly show you that. So I've just got a snap link swivel on there, as you can see, just freely running. I've got a rubber stopper there, a little bit of a boom, and then I've got a 30 centimetre hook length there. Now the hook length, I'm going to fish quite robust, because I know certainly to the left there are some snags there. So I'm fishing 0.16 soft steel hook length, and I'm going to kick off with a size 16 commercial carp hook. Simple as that. But I've got some 14s. If small fish are a problem, for example, and I want to put 4 or 5 maggots on or anything like that, I have got some other hooks in here ready tied, so that I can quickly and easily do that. So I'm just going to kick off with a 16, just start on, you know, 2 maggots, and just see what happens, you know, see if small fish are going to be a problem. Now one thing I'm going to do is, because we're fishing with barbless hooks, I have actually got some dead maggots as well, because they are less likely to come off the hook. So what I can simply do is I can put 1 live maggot on if I wish, for example, just so there's a bit of movement there, and then top it off with a dead one, just so it stays on the hook better. But hopefully we won't have to do that, so I'm just going to literally just kick off with 2 dead reds on the hook. That is it. And because these aren't riddling, then they should stay on the hook better. Now feeder choice, I'll quickly tell you about that, because there is some thought that needs to go into that. Basically what you're wanting to do is, on a venue like this, it's only 3 feet deep, 4 feet deep, so I'm wanting the maggots to exit the feeder quite quickly. Alright, so think about the style of feeder that you're going to use. This style of feeder would be ideal. You know, any sort of plastic cage feeder are great. However, that one there is, I think, is a little bit too small. So what I'm actually going to be using is this one. It's a side-weighted 20 gram wire cage feeder, and because it's wire, that's going to allow the water to get to these maggots really, really quickly, and allow them to exit the feeder really, really quickly. If I'm going to be getting quick bites, you know, and hooking fish as soon as the feeder goes in, I want that feeder to be emptying out there, right underneath that island, don't I? I don't want the feeder to be emptying all the way back while I'm playing fish, because then you're spreading bait everywhere. So that style of feeder is ideal. It's side weighted. I'm only casting, I don't know, 22 meters, something like that. So I don't need a rocket feeder or anything, or a Horizon or an orbit feeder. A side weighted feeder is going to allow me to get there nice and easy, and that is it. Okay, super simple. So the best way that I've found of loading your feeder is basically to get your maggots and create a ball. This is the best way that I've learnt. So if you get a ball of maggots like that and actually push them into the feeder. Now if you push them in too tight or too many, then they're not going to exit the feeder very well. And if you're a little bit unsure, or you just want a little bit of reassurance that they are exiting all right, I could now simply just drop that into a tub of water next to me, and with a stopwatch it'll give you an idea of how long it's going to take to exit the feeder. That should just be enough to stay in there for the cast, and it'll only empty when obviously when it's actually out there in the water. So I've got wind circling a little bit, so I'm just going to hit my clip there if I can. I haven't gone really tight in, because what I want to do is, one thing I like to do if I can catch a little bit away from that bank, that'll be good. But by hitting my clip over to the right there, what I've actually got now is, I've actually got a couple of turns of line actually on my reel before my line clip. It just means if I hit my clip here, I'd be right on my line clip, so that if I did hook a fish and it wanted to run and I wanted to take my line clip off, I wouldn't have any spare turns. But by hitting my clip where I've just hit it that time, I've got 2 turns of line on my reel. So if I do hook a fish and it wants to run, I've got 2 back winds before I've even got to think about taking the clip off. And sometimes that's enough just to control the fish. And it gives you a bit more time, so you're not panicking trying to get your line clip off. So all I'm going to do is stay on that same spot, keep building up with the feed. I've got a larger feeder here to try if they do want some volume of bait, and I could just play around between the two. There's an indication there. That look like small fish to me. There are some fish swimming through the peg high up in the water, so I'm expecting 1 or 2 liners, but that looked like a small fish rattle. So let's just, and your first couple of casts are going to give you an idea of how your feeder's emptying, as suspected. There we go. First cast, my first, and it's come off, and it's gone. There we go, freedom. There we go, my first sticky mag commercial fish of the session. So, like I said right at the start, we could find that those small fish are going to be a problem, and that's why I've got 3 pints with me. Sometimes when it's like that, you can literally feed them off, if that makes sense, or feed more, which can hopefully bring in the bigger fish. But like I say, it's going to be trial and error, and this is very specific to the venue that you fish in. You know, what I'm doing here might not be the same for you, because obviously every lake has got a different stocking level, hasn't it? So some lakes that you fish might have more silverfish in, some have got less. It could be a great winter tactic as well. You know, when you're fishing in winter, just fishing for bites, because all fish will eat maggots, won't they? I've only got 2 maggots on at the minute on that size 16, but I'd feel, you know, a lot more confident in catching carp if I could load it up with more maggots, and that's something I'm going to try, regardless of what happens with this particular rig. Getting little indications there. There wasn't any sign that there was a fish on then, but there is. Feels like another skimmer. Like I say, it'll be interesting to see if these come into the peg more and more. But as we know, you know, carp and F1s do love maggots. Let's just net him. There we go. Slightly bigger that one, but not the target. The silverfish have really homed in on it. Not too bad a stamp, to be fair, if they're what you were targeting. Is that a little? Yeah, well, we've got the right species, or one of them. Not quite the stamp that we're after, but there we go. It is fish a throw at the minute. Surely it's got to be a matter of time before those bigger fish come in, but I'm going to give it about another 10 or 15 minutes fishing like this, you know, with a smaller hook, a lighter hook length. And what I'm going to do then is, if this continues like this with these small fish or silver fish, I'm going to switch to that bigger hook, size 14. I'm going to load it up with 4 or 5 maggots and see if that can pick out some net fish. So I'm just going to remove that hook length, take that one off. We might have to go to it. You know what big fish like sometimes? Sometimes you've got to have a little bit of finesse, especially with F1s, so we might have to go back to that hook length. If we don't try it, we won't know if the bigger hook is better, will we? And I've got some here, size 14s now. This is going to give me the option of loading that hook up. I think it's important to keep the maggots going in, so this downtime is not great, but I think you've got to keep them maggots going in. When you look at how many casters and maggots a lot of the pole anglers feed when they go down the margins, or if they're fishing shallow, they feed loads, don't they? Pints and pints and pints, and that could be the way to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 maggots on this one. In fact, no, let's go for 5. Let's push the boat out. 5 maggots, there we go. Get this feeder loaded up. As you can see, that's much more of a target now, isn't it? Now these maggots have changed already. They're not as sticky as what they were. Like I said to you, I've got the gum just next to my box, so I can easily add some extra to it and a little bit stickier, and add any water as I need from the atomizer. Just gone to the left a bit, that one. It's on my clip though. Let's see if that bigger hook bait makes a difference. The next thing I can do, obviously, is I can step up to that size feeder, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 5 hole, still 20 grams. That's all we need. That's going to allow me to start feeding a lot more maggots and be a lot more aggressive with the feed. I was on the drop. I'll switch that round that way. As you saw, that was as soon as the feeder went in. It was slightly to the left, a few inches. That's why I've got a slightly longer hook length, to give you a chance of catching fish on the drop. There we go. Not a huge fish, but it's one of the targets. There we go. fantastic stamper fish. You know, if you can catch them regular, you know, with a method like this, with that long hook length, it could be a really quick way of fishing. Again, that was a really quick bite. The feeder had only just hit the bottom. Really positive pull, just as I was tightening up. I think this one is a barbel. How about that? That's a nice surprise. But as we know, fishing with maggots can catch you anything. Well, that's really ticking over nicely now, isn't it? There are still lots of small fish there, but I keep getting nice net bream, little bream, and the odd bonus fish as well. And I think if I kept going on that spot throughout the session, I think as the day went on, we probably would find more carp if we kept going. But the beautiful thing about this sort of a bait as well is, because you can squeeze these maggots or form them into balls, it means that you can prime your margins for later on. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the last hour or so. I've literally just been getting some maggots, a ball of maggots, and I can literally, down my margin, just keep putting balls down that margin there where I can drop my feeder later on in the session. So I'm going to have about another half an hour or so out there, and then I'm going to be dropping everything, the same rig and everything, but down this left hand margin to my left. When the time of day should be better, it's great having that option to feed down your margin like that. Obviously it's a lot more accurate feeding maggots in a ball like that, but it's I'm just netting these because quite often they can actually come off when you swing, and I don't want to go damaging the fish's mouths. Lovely little fish, aren't they? Well, there's no shortage of fish out there, is there? What a fantastic way of fishing if you just want plenty of bites and the anticipation of what you might or might not hook next. So it's time to have a look down these margins. It's 1:30, a little bit early I would imagine, but it's worth having a quick look. Been feeding that balls of these maggots now for an hour and a half. I don't want this to go in too heavy. Just there. I'll be amazed if there aren't fish there, even if there are just silver fish there, but oh, it's a flying bream. Fantastic. Well, that didn't take long, did it? That's not a bad stamp either, is it? Well, first cast, so they are obviously down there, and look how he's nailed that as well. He really wanted that, didn't he? Well, that's a fantastic start, isn't it? Still got that size 14 hook on, but like I said, they are live maggots, so they're a bit bigger, a bit bulkier. So let's see if that was just a lucky stray fish. Let's try that a bit shorter this time. One of the problems with fishing down margins like this is that you can have bait, obviously, coming back towards you. It's the same with pellets. I've done it before on this very same lake actually. When you're fishing down the margins with the method feeder, if you're getting quick bites, or just by naturally retrieving the feeder, there are pellets coming back towards you, and you know, and I've often found that some of the fish, I've often found that, you know, over the course of a few casts, you suddenly start getting liners and things, and that's because your line's coming through the pellets that were getting deposited back towards you. And it'll be the same with these maggots, I would imagine. That little corup. So it's great if you don't know what you're going to hook next, do you? Look at that beauty. Fantastic. Lots of baby F1s in some of these lakes. Lots of those. Well, there are so many fish down there now, it's unbelievable how much they're competing for it. Still a lot of small fish there, or when I say small fish, skimmers, perch, and some of those stocky F1s. But I'm sure if you just kept going and keeping that bait going in until later in the afternoon, 2-3 o'clock onwards, I'm sure we'd get a visit from some bonus fish. But it's certainly kept, I mean, they're straight into that now, you know. I've got 3 live maggots on there now, putting plenty of bait in. There we go. Keep getting perch coming in as well. There are some good stamp perch in here. That one's a skimmer, as you can see, just in the middle of his bottom lip. They're really nailing it. Well, I'm sure that we could continue catching all day, and I'm pretty sure that if we went into that later afternoon stage, we could catch some better fish down there. And this is just a really interesting way of fishing on venues like this, because you never know what you're going to hook next. You know, all fish, all species feed on maggots. So if you're going to go out and try it, just think carefully about the lake that you're going to go to, because if you fish one that's got lots and lots of silverfish like this one, then there might be too many silverfish there if you're wanting to catch carp and F1s. So just try and pick out a lake that's going to suit, you know, a stocking level that's going to suit what you actually want to do. This is an interesting method that I want to try on another lake on this complex. I want to try it on one of the other ones where there aren't as many silverfish, where there are more F1s and carp, and I'll probably do that when it cools down a little bit later on in the year, around autumn time, when that water starts to go a little bit cooler, and I think that'll be an interesting session as well. I really hope you've enjoyed this insight into this method. It's a really interesting way of fishing, because you never know what you're going to hook next, and it's not as complicated as what people think as you've seen today. So thanks for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you next time.